This here is a public service announcement dedicated to Obi-Wan Janowski. Around this time last year, I clowned him when he said he should have hired Brian Flores instead of Raheem Morris. I was like, you mean the coach who told his quarterback that he sucked and he couldn't get better? Well, I owe you an apology, my friend, because evidently he was right. Tua does suck, and we should have hired Brian Flores. But you won't get him now because you got arbitration going on with the NFL. My last reason I don't really like Mike McDaniel, he's a part of the Point Game Officials 2026 All Capri team. No more coaches with Capris in Atlanta. That bullshit. What's going on, family? It's your boy C-Mo the C. Mitchell checking in with another Falcons Bird Bath, my Point Game Official. And recently, Matt Ryan just had his official press conference about what it would mean for him to join the Falcons in the capacity of being president of football. And the main overall gist that I got from this was that Arthur Blank had to get out of the system of relying on basically what Rich McKay was doing on a regular basis. And he's moving over to Matt Ryan and just kind of getting a new way of doing things. And they talked about Matt Ryan's duties. Basically, he's going to be leading the current search for the GM and the coach. He's going to have the overall final say-so with the approval of Arthur Blank, of course. GM's going to do his regular job, and the coach is going to do his regular job. He's not going to be scouting players. He's not going to be responsible for player personnel. He's also not going to be making any coaching decisions. He's going to be in more of an overseeing role and not micromanaging and not meddling too much. He's going to help facilitate the GM needs. He knows what he would want if he was out there on the field. He's going to be able to go and make that happen for the GM and make sure that the quarterback and the rest of the team and the players are getting the things that he would have wanted when he was out there. Matt Ryan assured us that he has no desires to step in and do the things that a GM would normally do and take that away from them because they're expecting to go after some of the best GM candidates and they don't want to stop them for the capacity of doing what GMs normally do. Matt was very adamant that he doesn't know it all and that he has the authority, but he doesn't have all the knowledge. A lot of times, these guys in these upper office positions meddle a little bit too much. Now, he talked about what he'd be looking for in a new coach. Two things that stood out tremendously to me was that he's going to be, one, looking for a guy who has character, and two, a guy who is just very emotionally stable and composed under pressure. Now, that stood out to me a lot because Matt Ryan had been through 4 coaches while he was on the Falcons. First, Mike Smith. And a lot of fans like Mike Smith, but Mike Smith was a very emotional coach. He was too high with emotion when things were going good, and he was too down in the dumps when things were going bad. Same thing kind of seemed like it would happen with Dan Quinn sometimes too. Very just high energy players coach. But whenever there were mistakes that were made, it was very visible, kind of on his sleeve. And I like Arthur Smith. But Arthur Smith was also a guy that kind of wore his emotions on his sleeve a little bit too. Whenever there were downs, you could definitely tell it was worn all over his face. And that was the third thing that Matt Ryan also talked about. A guy who had presence, a guy who commands respect. He's looking for a leader of men. And that's what the best coaches out here do today. They keep things calm, collected, and under pressure. And that's what you need out of a head coach. Also knows how to motivate and keep you guys encouraged. Now, when they asked Matt Ryan, who's going to have the final say-so overall, he responded saying that, hey, at the end of the day, this is Arthur Blank's team. The biggest difference, I think, is that he's not going to have nearly as much on his plate as Rich McKay started to have over the years. And again, he's a former player, so he knows what he would want out there as a player and just kind of marry what it is on the field to the front office and to the GM and to the coaching staff as a whole. Because he knows what was missing during his time in Atlanta, and he kind of knows what to look for in a coach in order to not have some of the same failures as they had before, which I'll talk about here in a second. Real quick, guys, before we go any further. If you like the knowledge we're dropping in the floor of things, hit us with a like and subscribe right there. And hit that notification bell as well, too. The Falcons have interviewed several coaches already. John Harbaugh, Mike McDaniel, Steve Stefanski, Klint Kubiak, Anthony Weaver, and Aiden Durden, who's also with the Seahawks. Now, it looks like the Falcons are going really hard at getting the head coach before the GM. And this was something that I was a little bit concerned about myself, I'm not going to lie. But when they asked me at the press conference why they're going about it this way, come to find out it's because there's specific rules that are set in place that allows them to interview certain coaches and to interview guys in certain periods of time, especially right now while they're in the playoffs. Now keep in mind the Falcons have also requested to interview Vance Joseph with Denver. And he also requested the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, Robert Saleh. Just recently, after playoff losses, Mike Tomlin stepped down. And there's rumors of drama in Green Bay with Matt LaFleur. But right now they say that they're working on talks of an extension. But contrary to a lot of people's popular opinion, I'm not a big fan of hiring either one of those guys if there is a chance to do so. They're on my all mismanagement and blown leads team. Matt LaFleur was here in Atlanta during the 28-3 Super Bowl loss, and recently he just blew a 21-3 lead to lose to the Bears in the playoffs. A lot of fans want to see us with Matt LaFleur, but he's only won 3 playoff games his whole time in Green Bay. They needed this playoff win right now. They have had a really good playoff team, and they just have not ever been able to get over the hump and have a Super Bowl appearance. And in my humble opinion, they might be out of their window in Green Bay right now with this team. If I'm the Packers, I wouldn't get rid of Matt LaFleur because who else are you going to bring in there? But in Atlanta, you don't want to go back to the burning house that has left a stench on this franchise. 28-3 is one of the worst losses in Super Bowl history, and we get jokes from that all the time. John Harbaugh is also a guy who's known for blowing leads. Mike Tomlin is a guy who mismanages football games a lot of the time. Now, Mike Tomlin isn't necessarily known for blowing leads so much, but he has not won a playoff game in the last 9 seasons. He's gone almost a decade without a playoff win, which is the same boat that the Falcons have been in for the most part. Now, a lot of fans are like, hey, I'd be happy with having Mike Tomlin here. At least he's consistently winning. He hadn't had a losing season ever. Who wants to have no losing seasons and not even having a playoff game, let alone getting to the Super Bowl or winning a Super Bowl? We already haven't won these Super Bowls, and we've been mired in a lot of mediocrity and poor performances and underachieving. Mike Tomlin has done a great deal of underachieving with his teams in the NFL. And another person you don't see on the list is Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel is another guy that I don't want to see us hiring, that they have asked to hire. Now, he is a great offensive mind, and I wouldn't mind seeing him as an offensive coordinator here in Atlanta. But I believe he's going to have an opportunity to interview for head coaching positions all over the league. But during his time in Miami, he basically was given the keys to a Ferrari, and he wrecked the Ferrari. When he took over for Brian Flores, that was a playoff caliber team, built really good with defense, and it had some weapons there, and they had just started to get some more key pieces. But they had not made the playoffs with Brian Flores. First year, he was 5-11. Second and third year, he had winning seasons, 10 wins and then 9 wins. And I have no doubt in my mind that they were about to make the playoffs. That first year, Mike McDaniel made the playoffs, and then he made the playoffs the second year. His third and fourth year, it went downhill from there. He had losing seasons. I don't think that Brian Flores would have started having losing seasons if he would have just left him there. So that's why I don't want to see him here in Atlanta. It's heavily known for that team not being very disciplined. Players coming to meetings late, coming to practice late. And it looks like they weren't always prepared either as well, too. I don't think that Mike McDaniel fits the criteria of a leader of men and a guy that just commands respect and presence. And this team seemed to be very up and down and very inconsistent. And the Falcons don't need any more of that. They need a lot of stability from their head coach. They need a guy that when you look at and you see that it's tough times, look over at him and you're like, hey, I know you can navigate these rough waters. And I just don't get that vibe out of him, Mike. Now, of course, as I've been very critical of some of these head coaches, a lot of fans have asked me, well, Simo, who's better and why? Those are fair questions. I like Klint Kubiak. For one, he's the son of a head coach who's also a quarterback in this league. And I believe that he's a really good offensive mind because of that. Sons of coaches are very cerebral and really smart players. Klint Kubiak also played college football, and he played safety. So he's been on the defensive side of the ball, but he's been coaching on the offensive side of the football during his span in the NFL. And he served under several head coaches, including Kevin Stefanski. Now, Klint Kubiak has been an offensive coordinator with 3 teams. The Vikings, and he's also been a coordinator with the Saints. Now he's a coordinator with the Seattle Seahawks. But before that, he was a wide receiver coach in Kansas City, and the quarterback coach in Minnesota, passing game coordinator, and the quarterback's coach in Denver, passing game coordinator in San Francisco. Basically, what I'm saying is the guy has a very extensive resume. He's been around a lot of good football and has been at a lot of different stops. He's been at a lot of different stops, and he has looked at a lot of coaches do it, and I think he's picked up on some really good ways of playing football. And the coach he's with in Seattle right now is a guy that is not afraid to make decisions that are tough decisions to make, regardless of who it's popular with. He's not afraid to sit a guy down on the bench. Think about it. Even though Sam Darnold is among the league leaders in interceptions, he still has this team playing very efficiently. He's got some really good quarterback play out of guys who are not necessarily star quarterbacks in this league. And if he can do that with Sam Darnold, I believe he could really take Michael Penix to that next level. And honestly, it's kind of what I feel like we need. Going back to Harbaugh, when he was in Baltimore, he didn't really do much to be able to develop Lamar Jackson. And I'm not saying that you got to hire a guy just because he's X's and O's or he's one side of the ball or not. But a lot of times you will see these young quarterbacks with a defensive-minded coach, and it's not instilling more into them. from the offensive side of things. But Kubiak's not only been a coordinator, he's also been a quarterback's coach in this league. And I think that could be tremendous for Michael Penix. Another person I wouldn't be opposed to is Kevin Stefanski. A lot of people aren't fans of Kevin Stefanski, and that they don't like the way that he handled his time in Cleveland. Of course, a lot of people don't like that he didn't want Shador, he didn't want Deshaun Watson. But if you look at it, in Cleveland, he hadn't had a lot of good quarterbacks. And they made the playoffs twice, and they actually got the first playoff win for the Browns in quite a long time. And honestly, if you can coach through all that turmoil and that utter poop show in the Browns, I think you can do a lot better in a lot of other places that have a lot more stability with a pretty good quarterback and a pretty good roster. He's got some really good, innovative run games out there with the Browns specifically. And while he was with the Vikings, he was able to get one of the best years out of Case Keenum ever. Case Keenum is not a good quarterback, and a lot of people don't remember that when he was with the Vikings, but Case Keenum had a really good year that year. The Vikings were 11-3 that year, and they made the playoffs. And people seem to forget that he was really widely regarded as being a very innovative, offensive-minded coach. And I think that he can develop quarterbacks as well, too. Now, agree, is not as sexy of a sounding pick as some of these other candidates out there, and it doesn't look like he's one of the hot coaches right now. But you can win in Cleveland, you can win in a lot of other places. But if I'm the Falcons, I want to leave alone any of the older coaches. I want to get one of these younger, guru-minded coaches. And I really feel as though during this time with Cleveland, they were good at playing complementary football, even though they didn't always have a good quarterback. And real quick, I want to revisit what the Browns traded to the Texans in order to get Deshaun Watson. They traded a first-round pick in 2022, 2023, and in 2024. They also traded their third-round pick in 2023 and their fourth-round pick in 2024. Trading away your first-round pick 3 years in a row for a quarterback who's not playing on your team is a major setback. You're looking at a quarterback to be the great equalizer. I'm not so mad that they traded away a first-round pick for Deshaun Watson. And honestly, as good as Watson was playing at that time, I mean, he was playing absolutely lights out during his first few years in the league when he was with Houston. So at the time, it seemed like a good trade. Good quarterback can win you a good 3 or 4 games alone on his skill set and some of his decision-making and just the big plays that he can make. But them failing on that set their franchise back tremendously. So they were not allowed to add premier first-round talent in the draft for 3 years in a row, and that put them behind the ball when everybody else was able to do so. And they also gave up some other key picks as well, too. But they weren't able to get a quarterback. They weren't able to get weapons for the quarterback that they had in the first round as well either. I think that given those circumstances, he actually did a pretty solid job. But any coach would be hindered and hurt by such moves. And again, I don't think that this was something that he signed off on. That's something that has them signed off on in their GM. And you can't fire the owner of the team. The owner is just as much a part of that team having a losing record as Stefanski, if not the most overall culprit for it all. So I think that people are a little too hard on him. You got to cut him a little slack given that. So. All right, boys and girls, that's our show for today. Stay tuned. Like I said, I will keep you guys up to date with the news as it comes about as frequently and as fast as possible. Team on the C. Mitchell, checking out the Point Game official Falcons Bird Bath. Peace.